In today's video, I'm going to show you guys around this 2020 Infiniti QX60 by walking around everything you need to know about the exterior and interior features, the powertrain and performance specs before finally taking it on a full test drive. So let's get right into the video. Now, I'd like to start this review out by talking about the exterior design of the Infiniti QX60 because that's clearly the first thing you're going to see when you walk up to the dealership, and first impressions are incredibly important. Unfortunately, the outside world is a noisy place. There's someone mowing the lawn, there's crickets going off all over the place. So I'm actually going to be doing this from the inside of the car. Maybe you guys can see me through the window here. I'll open the door and wave. Hey everyone. But for the sake of keeping the audio nice, I'm actually going to remain here in the interior of the car while I walk you around some of the cool exterior features that we have on this car. It comes standard with LED daytime running lamps and LED headlights. And these have a somewhat different design from the QX50 I did a few weeks ago. There's actually two highlight lines going through instead of just the one in the QX50. But I think it's a really cool design. I'm a big fan of it. And it clearly comes with the standard Infiniti style chrome outlined grille that you're going to find on any Infiniti, regardless of whether it's an SUV, a sedan, or even a sports car. So it's got a really unique look for the brand that ties the entire lineup together. And moving along to the side of the car, we can really see the main feature that I appreciate most about the exterior of the QX60. There's not a single straight line on the entire exterior of this car. I challenge you to find a single one. It's all smooth flowing curves, especially on the side of the car. You can really see they've put a lot of effort into just carving this car out, and it looks so free-flowing and gorgeous. It's also got a couple cool options on the side, such as available 18 or 20-inch wheels, standard power folding side mirrors, and on the Q60 Luxe model, it has standard roof rails added on the top. Remember, the Luxe is the upgraded luxury trim level that's one step above the base Pure model, so you've got some cool upgrades on the exterior, such as those roof rails. Moving along to the rear of the car, again, we've got more LEDs and those taillights, as well as a standard power rear liftgate. And here, let me pop the hood for you. I can do that from in here. And once it's opened, in just a minute, you can see that it's powered by a 3.5 liter V6 that is pretty much standard across the entire Infiniti/Nissan lineup and produces 295 horsepower for the continuously variable transmission and available all-wheel drive system. Now, the interior of the QX60 really follows the design language of the exterior in that you're not going to find a straight line anywhere in this interior. It's all got curves and it's kind of bulged out a little bit, and it doesn't look bad, but to me it feels a little bit outdated, especially in the center console area where it's extremely curved outwards, and it feels to me like something I would have found in a Buick Rendezvous from 10 years ago rather than a 2020 modern day Infiniti. But that's all up to personal preference. Whether you like this design or not, I'm not going to tell you what you should think. You can take a look at it yourself and decide on your own. But going back to some of the hard facts and features that I can say about this interior, it actually does come with a good amount of things in here that you're not going to find in a lot of other luxury cars. Things that even come standard in this interior, such as the leatherette seating surfaces. It's a very soft faux leather, very light and airy color in this model, which really brightens and opens up the interior and makes it feel very, very welcoming. It is a faux leather, so it's not as perfect as it could be, but on the two areas you're going to be touching most, the steering wheel and the gear selector, it is a genuine leather. So it's upgraded here. It adds a little bit of a nice contrast with this gray color. But again, we've got that curved, bulged, almost bulbous design. It's kind of an ugly word, I know, but it's kind of an ugly steering wheel as well. In my personal opinion, looks very outdated. You can definitely tell where the airbag sits in this car. And I feel like most luxury manufacturers have found better ways to hide things like that. But again, personal preference. Right behind that steering wheel, you're going to find a couple more cool features. Obviously a pretty basic analog gauge cluster, but there is a small info screen right between those two gauges. And what I really like about that is it has kind of a 3D holographic design to it, where the screen is slanted and it almost projects upward into your face. Very cool and clever design with that. Some other cool technologies you have in this car are going to be found in the infotainment system. That is an 8-inch screen. Again, the way it's set in the car, it feels slightly outdated with all this matte plastic that feels a little cheap, but we're going to get into that technology in just a minute. Moving back to some of the other features, it comes standard with tri-zone automatic climate control. It does have a CD player, which again, maybe a little bit outdated if you ask me. And then they do say it comes standard with 8 USB charge ports in case you want to have 8 phones in here. Now, I only have one phone, but I'm noticing that there's 2 charge ports down there. There's also 2 more in here, There's a couple 12-volt power outlets, and audio jack, and then you've got even more of those things in the rear seats we're going to be checking out in just a minute. Other cool features include this nice tinted sunroof up here that allows a little bit more light in here, but not too much that you're going to get sunburnt. You've also got some cool trim pieces like this somewhat plasticky aluminum wood type thing. It's definitely plastic, but it does have a pretty cool look and really accents the interior, especially with this nice light colored faux leather. So all around, I may not be a huge fan of the design itself in this QX60 or even the layout, but the actual features they give you are pretty good. But clearly the main selling point of this QX60 is the incredible level of interior space it offers. Like I said on the exterior, it is a very large and long car. So you've got plenty of legroom and headroom for the second row passengers, a decent amount of headroom and legroom for the third row passengers, and a good amount of cargo space. But if you need more, obviously, as you can see, the third row seats fold down to offer just an unprecedented level of storage back there. If you need to fit something like your dog or your refrigerator, anything you want to bring around with you in this car, you can definitely throw that in the back seat there. So really cool and kind of functional design here with the rear seats. I'm also noticing we have more of those USB charge ports I mentioned in the front seats. Those are located down here right by the driver's armrest. So great design here in the rear seats, but like I said, we're going to take a little bit more of an in-depth look at that infotainment system, and then don't go anywhere because we're going on a quick test drive after that. Going back to this 8-inch infotainment touchscreen right here, some of you may actually remember from our review of the Infiniti QX50 that I'm not a huge fan of Infiniti's infotainment systems. They just feel a little bit outdated for me, and even though the screens are touchscreens, there's a good amount of lag, especially here in the navigation system. When you're zooming and swiping around, it just has a really hard time keeping up with what you're doing, and that can make it rather difficult to navigate. Other than that though, it does come with a decent amount of features. You can actually access the camera through the screen with just a press of a button here on the center console area, and it shows not only the view behind you, but also all around. It's got the 360-degree camera, and that's really, really helpful when you're trying to park this car. You can even go in and change the view for the side and things like that, so you can really nail your parking job. Going back to the different apps you have in the car, there are a few different cool things you can do with this, such as look at a clock or a compass, or also my favorite part, which is the driving performance. So you can tap on that right there or use the scroll wheel on the center console area. Again, takes a minute to load, but once it's up, you can see the range and the fuel consumption and even the fuel flow. And moving along, there's, you know, different graphs and things you can look at, even G-force meter in this car, which is something that I really only see in exotic sports cars and things like that, but it's actually really cool to have here in the QX60 if you want to know your G-forces. And you can go into the information and control a bunch of different things, such as your Eco Drive report. So it's all very statistics based. There's not a ton of different things you can do with this system, but there's a ton of different graphs and numbers you can look at if you're ever curious about your driving habits. So overall, this is not the worst system I've ever seen in a luxury car, but it is definitely not the best either. All right, now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the review, where I finally go on a full extensive test drive of this QX60. Now, if you ask me, most customers probably won't be too concerned with the way this car drives, but I'm curious anyway, so let's start off. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the way this steering wheel feels. It's just not formed properly for my hands, and it might just be specific to my hands, but you can obviously come down to the Infiniti dealership, hold the steering wheel for yourself, and decide then, but I do not like the way it feels. I will say though, it is a rather quiet ride. It does a great job of canceling all the lawnmower and cricket sounds on the exterior of this car. And it's also got a great climate control system, which seems like such a small thing to mention, but it's apparently 94 degrees here in Florida. I would imagine it feels more like 130. So AC is a very good thing to have. The suspension handles bumps fairly well going down into the road here. It feels pretty decent out on the road. It's not the softest suspension I've ever felt. And when you go over a bump, you can hear it too down in the depths of the car. And it definitely has a lot of weight to it coming up to the stop sign here. You've got to really get on the brake early. Turning onto the road, ton of body roll, but again, it's a luxury car, that's expected. It almost feels a little bit, I'm searching for the right word here, it feels a little bit floaty out on the road. It kind of moves around a bit based on road conditions and wind and all of that. So you never feel like you're not in control of it, but you can kind of feel it moving around you as you drive. The transmission as well, it's called a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Basically what that means is that there are no hard set gears, like it's not a 6-speed or a 7-speed or anything like that. It's kind of got an infinite number of gears it can go into, and that's supposed to make it feel a lot smoother out on the road. To me, it definitely makes the shifts less noticeable, but it also feels sometimes like it's kind of wavering around in the revs, like where exactly does it want to rev? Sometimes it's hard to tell. See, like right now my foot is almost to the floor and it didn't downshift per se. It just kind of wavered around 3,000 RPM. So it's a little bit interesting in terms of the transmission, but you know, it's a luxury car, not a sports car, so I think it's plenty fine for what it is. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick review of the 2020 Infiniti QX60. If you did, make sure to check out some reviews I've done of similar cars, either by clicking somewhere on the screen or by going ahead and checking out and subscribing to my channel down below this video. I'd also like to extend a huge shout out and special thanks to Loki Infiniti here in Clearwater, Florida for allowing me to review this car today. So I'll put a link to the inventory down in the description below. As always guys, thank you so much for watching.